Welcome to Midland Squirrel Hunter. I'm down in one of the old barns today. I've come down here to do a bit of filming because I've had an idea for a series of videos that I'd like to do, which may help people to establish grey squirrel shoots. That's assuming that you've already got your own permission or you've got land to shoot on, be that your garden or whatever else, as long as you know your distances if you're shooting in a garden, which I assume you would do. With this video, I just wanted to start out by making a real basic feeder from an offcut ply that I've got. Then we'll go on to establish a hide and situate the feeder. I'll then run through setting up a rifle, ammunition you'd need, distances, all that kind of thing. And finally we'd move on to a grey squirrel shoot and hopefully get a few in the bag. I am doing this purely off the back of a lot of messages that I've received on Instagram requesting advice. I really do appreciate that from people, so feel free to continue doing that. I'm not making this video to try and put a stop to any of that. The whole reason that I set up the YouTube channel is to try and learn a little bit more myself, help people to understand what we do, and yeah, try and educate a few people really. And it seems to be having that effect. Really pleased with that. So as I say, please feel free to keep messaging and asking for advice. If I can help, I always will. So I'm going to get into this now. I'll get all my kit set up. I'm going to keep it really basic with the tools and the materials that I use. The feed is going to be really basic, just to show you how simple it is, and hopefully you'll have a go yourself. I've got all the tools out of the van that I'm going to be using. I'll run you over them quickly in a minute. The bench is set up. I've got the offcut ply that we're going to make the feeder from. I'll just give you the size of that quickly. So in inches, it is 65.5 inches, which is also 1665 in millimeters. And the width is 15 inches, which is 380 millimeters. I'll get this all sized up. You've not got to work to these sizes. I'm just getting the best yield I can from this sheet and just showing you how to knock a basic feeder up. I'll run you through the tools and then we'll get into making it. Quick run over what tools you're going to need then. So I'll keep it as basic as I can. Obviously you're going to need a pencil, tape measure, square, hammer. It's not essential, but it'll just help you to knock your bits of timber square. A knife, just to sharpen your pencil with. Panel saw, that's not the best, but it will do. 2 boxes of screws really, so you just want some 50 mils, they're 2 inch, and then just some inch, or they'll be 25 mil. Basic drill, I've got a little electrical back box that will be used as a little tray just to retain the nuts at the bottom of the feeder. And I've got a 3-inch butt hinge which will go on the lid, just so when I'm topping up, I can just lift the lid up and yeah, you know what hinge does. Got a pilot drill and countersink bit. That's not essential, but it does help to just pilot everything. Stops the wood splitting. This is ply that we're going to be using, not the best material. It's 3/4 inch ply or 18 millimeter. That's the thickness. It will separate over time and it is susceptible to damage from grey squirrels. But we are keeping it very basic and cost effective, and this is just to show you that you can knock a feeder up for next to nothing and it will last you a good while. I've got feeders I've had out there for years and years that are made out of the same material. So that's the board all dissected up now. I will leave them measurements in the description, so feel free to check that. The feeder is going to be 8 inches deep, 15 inches tall, 10 inches wide at the front. I'll take you through the process of putting it all together and everything. I'm going to get it cut up now, and I will just keep the feeder square. I'm not going to put a pitch on the roof, I don't think. I just want to keep it really basic so that anybody can make this. I am going to just use a 3-inch butt hinge to attach the lid, and as I said before, a little metal electrical box, back box, just to retain the nuts and stop them going all over the floor. You can use anything you want. That's cost me roughly about £3. You're looking at between £3 to £5 for these bits. Obviously the hinge comes as a pair, the back box is a singler. The piece of ply that I've got here is from the land. Steve's kindly donated that to me to make this video, so that's not cost me anything, and hopefully you can find some scrap wood around and you'll be able to do something very similar. So all the bits of board are cut up now. I've got the two sides and the front just here. What I'm going to start with is we'll put the sides up and we will attach the front to those like so. So it will form like a small box. But before I put any fixings in, I just want to run down here, give myself a line. And what I'll do is I'll pilot drill that in maybe 4 places, just to attach them together. The way you'll get that line is if you just half the material you're using. So we're using an 18mm board, that will be a 9mm line that will bring down there. You can use your square for that. So if you get your square, you set it at 9mm. You can just run that down the side of there with your pencil. That'll give you the same both sides. Again, you just want 4 fixing points across there. We're going to be using the 50mm screws in this part. So I'm going to get this pilot drilled now and anchor it to the sides, and I'll run you through all of that. You'll see the whole thing constructed, and hopefully, as I say, you can go out and start to make your own. So that's your front, all pilot drilled, ready to go. But before you go any further, you want to mark out the centre at the bottom. So we've got 10 inches, 250mm. So we'll mark the centre of that, which would be 125mm, 5 inches. Just roughly line up one of the fixing points on the back box with that mark, and just mark either side. It's not got to be anything neat. Give yourself probably a little bit more than the depth of the back box, so I'm just flushing that up with the bottom of the board, run a pencil across the top of that. That's the exact size of the back box there. What you can actually do is just make it a little bit bigger. So if we go 50mm, the back box is actually 25mm. Get your square, again, you can set 50mm to get that line, and then just square up these marks. I'm going to go a little bit bigger, 2 or 3mm. Same that side. And then all we need to do now is cut that area out. That's the front all prepped up now then. So done the cut out, sanded that off, pilot drilled everything. Ready now to attach to the sides. I did forget to say in the last bit, if you make your front and sides maybe 2 to 3 inches smaller than your backboard, there's the backboard, that will give you somewhere to attach your hinge, and it will also give you somewhere, if you fix into a post, to put a screw through. So really simple how we do this. You stand the 2 sides up. You can use clamps, will make it a little bit easier and just steadies things up a lot better. So these boards are not perfect because it was an offcut, so I will leave the gap. There's a slight difference. I will leave that at the top. I can always cut that off afterwards. So you just attach a screw through. And then if I put one on the opposite side, that'll just secure everything up, and I can then start to square it up and finish off making the feeder. This is probably the hardest bit, most trickiest bit, because you're trying to balance everything. stand up on its own, and I can get everything squared up and good to go. So that's the front attached to the two sides. I'm now going to take the back, pilot drill again like I did on the front, attach that just to square the box up, then we'll put the base and the lid. Right, so that's the main shell of the feeder constructed now. I'm now going to attach it to the base, which will simply be like that, with the little electrical box there. I will have to undo a couple of these tabs and just fold that back, sit that inside there, lid will go on. If I've got a bit more timber, I may put a slope inside just to direct the nuts more towards the box, but they'll go towards that anyway. Again, you just want to do a 9mm line all the way around, half the thickness of your board, just for a pilot drill. Just be aware that your box doesn't go all the way to the front. So maybe 3 fixings along the side, 2 across the back. Just change the bit out for a pilot. So that's the feeder constructed more or less. We've got the actual box attached to the base, the backboard's on. Just before I put a hinge onto the lid is literally just going to be a flat board on top. It's got a 20mm overhang on the side and roughly about a 20 to 30mm overhang on the top. I'll fix the hinge there, but before I do that, I've took one of the offcuts from the board, so it's exactly the same piece of board. I've measured it to be the same width as the feeder internally, and then all I'm going to do is push that down to the bottom. I'll just show you. So it creates kind of like a ramp inside, and that will just slope the nuts towards the tray. And the way you'll attach that is just to put a screw through the back and a screw up through the bottom. Just measure that out and transfer their measurements onto the base and the back. So I'll get that done, attach the lid, then we'll run through it all. So you see just inside there, little ramp just to direct the nuts, the flow of the nuts. Again, your feeder's not got to be anything perfect, and I'm pretty sure if any of the lads that I work with see this, will give me a bit of stick, because I am a joiner by trade. You probably wouldn't think it by looking at that. So that's the lid attached. Put the hinge at the back, as you can see. Left a little 5mm gap there just to allow for it to open and close. And I've created a small latch at the front just by putting 2 small screws in and a 50mm screw coming down. That will just prevent any squirrels or anything trying to lift the lid. It's quite a way up, so they probably won't do that anyway, but it's just there as a prevention. What I'm now going to do is fix the electrical box. So there's the electrical box, all done. The internal lugs have been folded in. I've bent out one of the walls of the box just to make as a back plate. So that will now simply go inside the aperture. Fix that down with a couple of screws. And that's really going to help us to retain nuts as they come out of the feeder. I did opt to make an open feeder for this video as opposed to a lidded one, which is like what we use on the land. For the reason being, this can be used to just establish an area. You will get a lot of songbirds, jays, crows, magpies, pheasants, all sorts of wildlife will come to an open feeder because obviously the food's available, which will then attract squirrels to the area. They'll see other wildlife feeding on this feeder and they'll come into it. Whereas if you've got a lidded feeder and you're trying to establish a chute for the first time, that can be very tricky because the squirrels are the only ones that can get inside. So this is good to go. You could give it a coat of fence paint if you wanted to. You could cover the top with some felt to make it a little bit more waterproof. But this, in this state, would last a good 2 years, believe it or not. Might need a few minor repairs on it. I am going to give it a coat of fence paint just because I've got some, but I hope you've enjoyed watching this video, and we can carry on and do the next part of the series, which will be establishing the feeder on a tree and getting a hide set up with the distances and everything else. So just before I give this a lick of paint and end the video, I just want to say thank you for watching. Hope this comes in useful to some people. I am going to put a few bits at the end just showing some of the feeders that I use on this permission and some of the other permissions that I've got. I have asked a few people as well to send me over a few pictures and videos of the feeders that they're using. So I'll put all of that at the end of the video. It'll give you a bit more of an idea of designs of what you can make. And as I say, everything about this feeder will be in the descriptions. This can also double up as just a garden feeder. You've not got to use it to shoot from. If you want to feed wildlife, this would be something that you could maybe knock up yourself and just attach to your fence, or maybe put a post in and attach your feeder to it. It doesn't have to be this big, this wide or tall. You can make it on a smaller scale, but it surely will bring wildlife to your garden or any other area that you've got if you're interested in that kind of thing. Thanks a lot for watching.